everybody, and welcome to another Agile IT Tech Talk. I'm your host, Sean Spicer, and today we're going to be talking about Zero Trust Security. Now, Zero Trust Security was considered a buzzword when we first wrote about it over a year ago, but in the last year, we've seen NIST release an official framework with NIST 800-207, and it's also become one of the most accepted frameworks for defending distributed workforces. This is really important right now. One of the key ideas between ZTS is that there is no perimeter. Now, with users able to work from any place and any device, we can no longer rely on keeping everyone safe behind a firewall. And even if you do have a great firewall set up, there are just too many weaknesses presented by individuals to lean on that and assume you're safe. Now, this is really important right now, given that an estimated 90% of Americans are under some form of stay-at-home order, which is driving the number of remote workers through the roof. It's also fueling a meteoric rise in cyber attacks right now, from phishing attacks claiming to have COVID-19 related information or tools, ransomware attacks on hospitals, and Zoom, just being Zoom, an immature company. They're doing their best to meet the demand, but realizing the problems and technical debt they assumed by rolling their own security and skipping some critical security functions in their development in their rush to market. Today, we're going to look at a number of different tools, and we'll also be looking later on how Cloud App Security can identify shadow IT apps like that that might be posing security issues. So Zero Trust adapts to the complexity of this current environment and embraces the mobile workforce and protects people, devices, application, and data wherever they're located. Instead of believing everything behind a corporate firewall is safe, Zero Trust assumes breach and verifies each request as if it originates from an uncontrolled network. This approach is based on three guiding principles we're going to discuss today: verify explicitly, use least privileged access, and assume breach. So in this demo, we're going to explore how a number of Microsoft solutions effectively enable each of those three principles across the Zero Trust pillars. And those pillars are identity, devices, applications, infrastructure, network, and data. So before we start, I want to let you all know that we're launching a new web series starting next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Given the success of some fireside chats we did during our first 2 weeks of remote work, we've decided we're going to expand that series and open it up for everyone. Yeah, even those of you watching on YouTube. So for the duration of this crisis, we'll be meeting every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. with a series of 10 to 20 minute strategic discussions with our CEO, Conrad, based on things we've worked on internally or for our clients during this period. These will be followed by an open Q&A, free for everyone to ask their own questions. You can register at the URL up on your screen right now, agilit.co/CWC, short for Coffee with Conrad. Hope we can see you all there. But hey, let's get started. So we're going to start with the first principle of Zero Trust: verify explicitly. In the demo, we're going to explore how Microsoft's identity solution, Azure AD, and Microsoft's Cloud App Security Broker product, MCAS, or Microsoft Cloud App Security, make this possible. For your business applications, it's important to centralize identity management in a single cloud identity system and require authentication and authorization based on all available data points, including identity, location, device health, service or workload, data classification, and anomalies. This will be foundational later in the talk as we move on to the second and third principles, which rely on an explicitly verified identity. So verifying identity starts with being able to control what users have access to. Today, we're going to look at the experience of Wes, a security administrator at Fourth Coffee. No, it's not Contoso this time. And we're going to see how he can use Azure AD controls and permissions to explicitly verify every authentication request. So in the Azure AD portal, you can find all the security features under the security blade. We'll be looking at the capability called identity protection that assesses each sign-in risk in real time, and through integration with Microsoft Cloud App Security and Azure ATP, it has a good view on the accumulated risk of every user. So we'll click here on identity protection. So the identity protection dashboard provides us with a view of organizational user risk profiles, as well as controls to enforce policies based on an individual's users and sign-ins risk. Here we're going to configure a new user risk policy. We're going to start with defining the policy conditions. In this case, we'll take accumulated user risk into account. So this policy targets users whose risk profile is high. Now, control specifies what actions to take during a user login. We'll choose require password change. So every time a user reaches high risk, they'll be required to perform a secured password change. Once this new policy is set up, we can look at a report of currently risky users. Here we see Clara Pinto is identified at risk level high, and that's an immediate red flag because Clara is in HR and may have access to employees' personal information. So we can just click on her, and we can see that she's been identified as high risk because her leaked credentials were found on the internet. So let's look at Clara's experience with this policy the next time she tries to log into the Office 365 web portal. So she's going to go in and sign in with her credentials, and she'll be notified that her account is at risk, and she's going to be prompted to verify her identity through an MFA push notification. So you've got a number of different options. This can be done from a text message, a phone call, a verification code from the mobile app, or with Microsoft Authenticator, which is definitely the most secure. Maybe in the Q&A period, I can discuss a little bit about why SMS is not an ideal solution for multi-factor authentication anymore. So here we're going to use Microsoft Authenticator app, and we're going to go ahead and approve the sign-in. And she proves her identity with that app. And then she's going to be forced to change her password. Now she's in. So this is great because she was able to resolve her high-risk status by resetting her password securely on her own and resume working on her assignments. She was able to perform all of this without any input, hassle, or cost of IT help desk support. And this will continue to work as people move into this high risk category without any additional work on the IT department side, just allowing that security to remain continuous. So besides verifying user identity, another important step in explicit verification is device compliance. Azure ID works seamless with mobile device management services like Intune to enforce device compliance policies. What is truly unique about the Microsoft Security products is a deep integration between each of the pillars of Zero Trust. In this case, Azure AD Conditional Access also allows admins to set up device-based policies that will be monitored and enforced by Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Now, I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit with that product named Microsoft Endpoint Manager. About 4 months ago, Microsoft rolled up SCCM and Intune into a combined endpoint manager for both on-prem and cloud devices. Don't get confused. In this case, we're going to be talking about Intune. So first, we're going to go ahead and show the admin policies. So let's look at how the policy is configured. And now we'll grant access for our users, but we'll require that they access company applications from compliant managed devices. So let's look at another user, Anna. Anna is a new employee at Fourth Coffee. She wants to access her email using Outlook on her personal mobile device. So this is BYOD. Her device is not yet enrolled with Fourth Coffee. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to open Outlook here. She's going to provide her user credentials and add an account. It's going to go ahead and ask for her password and probably do Authenticator. Yep. So she's unable to access her email until her device is managed by Fourth Coffee. So she's going to have to enroll her device into Fourth Coffee's mobile device management system, which is Intune. So just after a few seconds, she's going to have access to her company email, devices, Wi-Fi, and all of her applications. This is a single identity. So it's pretty easy and straightforward. Now, the next time she launches Outlook, she also has the new company portal here. She's going to verify her credentials one more time. And now she's able to access her mailbox on her personal device. This will also work with the mobile apps for Teams, Word, Excel. And what's great is if you have biometrics enabled on the phone and your policies are set up for that, you don't even need to type your password. It's just put your thumb there on your screen or your biometric reader, and you're going to sign in automatically. This gets rid of that risk of people using weak passwords, reusing passwords that they may have used on LinkedIn that got breached 7 or 8 years ago and are just all over the dark web. So it really is a more secure way to manage and protect your users that are working on mobile devices, particularly in this time where everybody is working mobilely at home and you have no idea what their infrastructure is like. So the second important principle of Zero Trust is using least privileged access. So admins can limit user access with just-in-time and just enough access, JIT and JEA. Risk-based adaptive policies and data protection to protect both data and productivity. Users should have what they need to be productive, no matter the device, while also ensuring they have just the access required to use the data and resources they need and no additional access. This goes back to the age-old having a local admin account and not allowing people to install things. It's just become a lot more advanced and a lot more granular in terms of the controls we're capable of applying. So let's see how we can provide least possible access, so JEA, just enough access, based on the apps used when a frontline worker accesses them from a non-compliant device. So again, we're going to start from the conditional access blade in the Azure AD portal. And this time we're going to select a policy, block downloads from SharePoint on non-compliant devices. So to set up this policy, we'll start with an app. In this case, we'll go with SharePoint. Pardon me. So in the conditions, we're going to define the device state to make this policy only apply to non-compliant devices. So we'll exclude all devices marked as compliant from this new policy. And finally, with Microsoft Cloud App Security, we'll also set up session control policy to block downloads. So for some apps, like Salesforce, that have access to very sensitive customer information, we'll want to block access from non-compliant devices altogether. We don't want somebody downloading our entire user list if they're not, or our entire client list if they're not part of the company and they happen to have access to a device. Again, with conditional access policies, you can easily do this from Azure Portal. So block access to Salesforce from non-compliant devices. Now I'm going to select an app, in this case, Salesforce. And going back to the device state, I will once again only set this policy up for non-compliant devices. So I'll choose for this policy to apply to all devices except those marked as compliant to block access to the Salesforce app. So as you can see, our new policy is set up and will block access to Salesforce from non-compliant devices. So let's look at the user experience for each of those policies because they work together. Now, Anna is a frontline worker at Forth Coffee. She's logging in from her personal device to access several corporate applications that have varying degrees of sensitive data. Her device is not compliant per Forth Coffee's policies. So Forth Coffee uses Workplace by Facebook, an app for social collaboration. This app is not intended to contain any business-sensitive data. As such, Anna's experience is not restricted at all. She's able to post messages, download documents, etc., even using her personal unmanaged devices. I don't know why anybody would use this. There's Yammer, there's Teams, but hey, let's not dog on Forth Coffee right now. But I wanted to show this because this does demonstrate that these defenses extend outside of Office 365. So Box, Dropbox, Salesforce, Workplaces by Facebook. Now with the portal, we can go ahead and go back to My Apps. Now she wants to access SharePoint Online. which contains some business sensitive documents. Yep. And she's notified that access to SharePoint is only available in the web browser and is monitored by her organization. So she can continue here. Now, Anna is through to SharePoint. She's able to see relevant information and documents. She even sees the new communication strategy 2020 document that she's eager to start working on. And she tries to open the document, but her download gets blocked as she's trying to open a confidential document from a non-compliant device. Now she's in the Maps portal on her personal device, and she's trying to check if she has any new leads in Salesforce. So we've already set up that policy. She's going to go ahead and open the Salesforce app. And again, part of this My Apps portal is that it does incorporate SAML and single sign-on so that you're using your Microsoft identity to sign into these SaaS apps. And here you can see that she can't open the app since we set up a policy that Salesforce can only be accessed from compliant devices. So next, in order to deliver on the principle of least privileged access, it's important to eliminate standing privileges and only assign privileged roles for a specific time or a specific task. With Azure AD, admins can assign privileged roles through a combination of conditional access and privileged identity management. Earlier I mentioned that we're going to be starting this Coffee with Conrad series. Conrad's going to be talking a little bit deeper into the strategy and capabilities of Azure AD's PIM. And this is really cool, and we've been playing around a lot with some of the advanced features. So I'm excited for that talk next week. Remember to go and register, but let's go on and see what this looks like. So in the spirit of providing the least privileged access, we can set up a conditional access policy to block access to Power BI app for users who are not security admins or global admins. So require privileged access for Power BI. And then cloud apps or actions. The cloud app targeted by this policy is Power BI, users and groups. This policy will block access to all users except global administrators and security administrators. So finally, the policy is set to block access unless the conditions are specified are met by the user. So let's see how this impacts an end user who is trying to access data in Power BI. So this time it's going to be Adriana here at Coffee, and we're going to go ahead and sign in. I'm going to go put in the password, and you don't have access to this. Your sign-in was successful, but you don't have permission to access this resource. Now we'll go ahead and open up a new tab. Now, the good news is if she needs this access, she can easily fix it by enabling the right role for her in Azure AD portal. She doesn't need to change accounts. She doesn't need to remember a separate global admin account. Instead, she can just click here in My Roles, and she's got in the Azure AD Roles blade, she can select the role of Security Administrator under her eligible roles. Now she can choose this role for a specific time to avoid standing access, as well as specify the reason why she needs access for any future audits that may be required. So we're going to go ahead and set the start time and duration, and then click the reason text. So she wants this so she can view performance reports. She's going to go ahead, and when she activates access, she's going to have 1 hour starting at this time. And she's done. She'll now be able to access that Power BI report. So now with her role elevated temporarily to Security Administrator for 1 hour, she attempts to sign in again. And again, SSO, it remembers her. And she can now access Power BI for 1 hour. After this, her elevated access will be automatically revoked, leaving no lingering admin privileges behind. If you can't figure out why this is really important, you haven't dealt with security. So if somebody does manage to get her credentials, one, there's going to be a record of any attempts to elevate privileges, but as well, people aren't, or threat actors are not going to be able to just come in and go wherever they need to. So he just has just enough access, just in time. So despite verifying explicitly and granting the least privileged access, we must still assume breach. Microsoft provides several ways to dig out the bad guys in your environment. So identity protection brings you risk insights on multiple levels. The Microsoft Graph APIs provide similar capabilities as identity protection for developer-centric solutions. And Azure Sentinel, the cloud-based SIEM, allows you to perform investigations, threat hunting, security operations center automation, and connection with multiple data sources. We're going to be looking at all of that here. So before we get in and look at the principles of assume breach, I want to lead in with two quotes. The first is one you probably heard from the former head of the FBI, Robert Mueller, and there are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. And a lot of people said, well, that's a little bit behind the times. And John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, I think really nailed it. And this is something that we kind of throw around back and forth with other security-minded individuals that I work with. There are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that don't know they've been hacked. I think it's a little bit ironic that that's coming from Cisco, but it's true. And it's really a foundational cornerstone of the idea of assume breach. So assume breach means that a breach will eventually happen, and we implement measures to limit the damage caused. So admins can use analytics to get the reports, logs, and alerts in order to see where to add additional measures of security and ensure a quick response when a breach occurs. We're going to go ahead and look at risky users again. So Azure ID Identity Protection provides robust reports on identity risks. Admins can get better detail on their risky users in the risky user view, including their basic info, their recent sign-ons, and other detections like leaked credentials and the user's overall risk history. Let's go ahead and look at risky sign-ons. Pardon me, I had to take a drink of water. An admin can also view the history of risky sign-ins for the entire organization. Each risky sign-in provides information on the type of device used, if there was multi-factor authentication, and if any conditional access policies were applied. So you can see we've got date, user, IP address, location, operating system, and risk state. Like Azure ID and Identity Protection protects identities, Microsoft Information Protection protects data. So risk detections, this view shows all of the detections that made the linked users and sign-ins risky. So again, you can see detection type here, and you can see why something was strange. Unfamiliar sign-in properties, Azure AD AI. This is the artificial intelligence power in Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2, which uses machine learning to recognize your users' behaviors and recognize when they're doing something strange. So if I log in, for example, at 9 a.m. every morning, log out at 5, and I never log in at 1 a.m. If I log in at 1 a.m., it's going to go ahead and trigger a risk state. Depending on policies, it may or may not trigger any action. For us, it will trigger MFA. So I'm always getting MFA triggers whenever I'm either working from a cafe, because I don't do it very often, or when I'm logging in late at night for my personal machines. So let's go back and look at risky users. So here we can drill into risky users using Azure Advanced Threat Protection in the Microsoft Cloud App Security Portal. So we can go ahead and investigate with ATP over here. And here we can see activity from a Tor IP address, and we can see the reason why there was risky action. We're going to look here at Azure Sentinel. So all of this information and more from other Microsoft Threat Protection services is available for consumption through MS Graph. But there's another new way to see incidents, perform hunting tasks, and even use playbooks for Security Operations Center processes in Azure Sentinel. And Azure Sentinel, I believe, hit general release in September, and the capabilities are just through the roof. Really, I haven't even scratched the surface yet, and I'm getting better at it. I cannot wait to give a tech talk on this. So let's start with reviewing these security incidents that happened since the last administrator sign-in. So right over here, we've got incidents. So incidents in Azure Sentinel allow for admins to review, assign, and investigate various security alerts. So we can see a bunch of different alerts here. And let's see, so we've got user signed in with anonymous IP, and we can go ahead and click investigate. So investigations are shown as a mesh view that allows further exploration of the associated detections that triggered alerts. So security professionals can go to an even more advanced step beyond investigation and look into hunting. So hunting uses preset queries to scan a range of areas based on incoming data from all of Microsoft's services. And then there are playbooks. Now, playbooks allow the building of workflows for automated hunting, investigations, and even allows for security operations centers process automation. So this is really a force multiplier. If you have 2 or 3 people working in your SOC, or maybe just one part-time person who's security-minded, a admin who is trying their best to keep up, by using these automated workflows, suddenly they have the ability to work as if they're a team of 20 or 30. And these tie into other Microsoft functions for automation, like Power Automate, that can send alerts into Teams if things get out of hand. And then it also, Azure Sentinel, has a ton of data connectors. So Sentinel allows for data connectors to both Microsoft services as well as third-party services, including your firewalls, creating a single place to see all of your security alerts. Finally, assuming breach means not just assuming digital identities, resources, and data have been compromised. It also means assuming that your infrastructure has been as well. So Microsoft's Intelligent Security Graph powers Microsoft Threat Intelligence, including Azure Security Center. In Azure Firewalls, you have the option to enable threat intelligence, which will process threat intelligence-based filtering before any NAT, network, or application rules. By turning on the alert and deny mode, high confidence alerts will block traffic from going through the firewall at all and ever touching your network. So today we've gone over the Microsoft Zero Touch approach and how it operates on the 3 principles of verify explicitly, use least privileged access, and assume breach. We invite everybody to use these solutions to start your Zero Trust journey. If you have moved out into a remote work environment and suddenly all of your users are working from around the world and you haven't put security into place using this Zero Trust model, we're here to help. And after all, Microsoft is the only vendor that can provide security solutions for each of the Zero Trust pillars that are already pre-integrated and work hand in hand with your existing environment to protect your entire digital estate. I hope this has been really useful. Thank you very much for joining us. We're about to open up the open Q&A. As a reminder, Agile IT Tech Talks are a benefit for our MSP and CSP clients. We do make the demo sessions available on YouTube, as well as more in-depth write-ups on our blog at agilet.com/news. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for the watch. Give us a like and follow. I'm always happy to answer your questions and love those comments, so keep them coming. Everybody, be safe out there, wash your hands, and this too shall pass. Thanks again for joining.